opening, and in that frozen moment fearful and wondering eyes turned to the sky. When the last fragments had fallen, Sergeant Raleigh and Corporal Hughes approached to inspect the damage. Hughes placed his hands on his hips and gave a low, awed whistle. "Well, that'll clear your tubes and no mistake," he said. It appeared as if God himself had reached down and scooped out a 60-foot-wide handful of the hillside, leaving mounds of soil and rocks settling back into the crater in small avalanches, and splintered trees about the periphery. All that remained of the bomb was a twisted fragment of tail fin right at the very bottom, and a litter of leaf debris that had been sucked into the crater by the blast's initial vacuum. "You're not wrong," Raleigh replied. "Right, let's get the worst of it." They set to giving the immediate area a quick once-over for the largest and most obvious pieces of shrapnel to be dumped in the crater and covered over. It would not be many more seasons before the woods reclaimed the spot as if nothing had ever happened, as if there had been no such things as war or bombs. Already birdsong was slowly returning to the woods, filling the shocked silence. Raleigh's explorations were interrupted by a sudden cry of alarm from Hughes. "Sarge!" he called. "Come quick!" He found Corporal Hughes standing by the wide trunk of an old, dead oak tree. It had succumbed to either lightning or disease many years ago, and it had sheared off about 7 feet from the ground, the remains of its limbs being little more than stark, fingerless stumps. The explosion had caused a great split to open up in it, a ragged fissure revealing that the trunk was hollow. At the bottom, in the shadow of a shallow well formed by the centre of the roots, he made out the deeper darkness of an eye socket staring back at him, and he recoiled. "Sweet Mary, Mother of God!" he breathed. The skull was lying on a pile of what he at first took to be old sticks, but then saw that they were ribs, leg bones, arm bones, the blocky lumps of vertebra, and a littering of fingers and toes. Stuffed into the hollow trunk, the corpse had been unable to fall and had simply rotted where it stood, the disarticulated remains collapsing through themselves and into a jumbled pile with the skull uppermost, staring up at the opening in the top of the broken trunk, which was forever beyond reach. There was fabric, too stained to tell the colour or whether it was shirt, trousers, or dress, and strands of dark hair still attached to the skull. Hugh's normally ruddy face was pale, and he was making strange gulping noises as his cheese sandwich threatened to rebel. Both men had seen their fair share of death, bodies mangled and torn apart by German bombs, burned in fires, lacerated by shrapnel, crushed by fallen buildings, or any one of a dozen other ways a person could be killed. Neither could claim to be unaffected, but you took a deep breath and you carried on, and you did your job. It was horrific but explainable, and hard to think of as murder. It was war. This, however, was something entirely different, and coming as it did in what should have been a place of natural beauty and tranquillity, gave it a particular sense of violation. Hughes had managed to get himself under control. Poor bugger! Who do you think he was? The police were called, but they could not discover the identity of the corpse beyond that it was the remains of a young woman. No witnesses came forward, and as the hills lay right on the boundary between the districts of Birmingham and Bromsgrove, the investigation was passed back and forth between the two county constabularies until the threads of the investigation were hopelessly tangled and eventually lost altogether. Still, nature abhors a vacuum, and no more so than the hole left by a soul taken friendless, anonymous, and alone. Like air or birdsong, myth floods in to fill the gap. 1. Hand of Glory. Chapter 1. Collision. Rachel Cooper stares down into the black gulf where the two steel hulls meet. A second ago, they were approaching each other with the ponderous inevitability of thunderstorms, and she was scrabbling with slippery feet to get out of the way. In a second's time they will rebound